20 tonight, Lord willing. This is just continuing the section. If you'll remember, Moses is giving these series of speeches throughout the book. He starts out giving kind of a recap of their history. He sort of moves from that. There's this parallel between where they have been and where they're going. He's saying, you have been like this, you are here, you're going somewhere, and you get to make a choice, and if you choose wisely, if you choose to follow these instructions and laws that I'm giving you, it'll go well with you, and you'll have all these blessings. If you choose to do wrong, if you choose to do the things that the nations around are doing, if you choose to do the practices of the nations that you're supposed to drive out, you will be cursed by God, and all these terrible things will happen to you. And then in the middle, there's this long section about the things that you're supposed to do. This is essentially a very quick sort of layman's, what you might think of as a layman's view version of the law. He's giving all these things. It's like, okay, when you're going through your daily life as an Israelite, here are the things you should be keeping in mind. Here are the things you should be doing. Here are the things you should be adhering to, the statutes and the laws of God. Like I say, we're kind of in the middle of that section, so we will start in chapter 18, verses 1 through 8. Would someone read that, please? Chapter 18, verses 1 through 8, please.
Remember that the Levitical priest, that is the whole tribe of Levi, will receive no allotment of land among the other tribes in Israel. Instead, the priests and Levites will eat from the special gifts given to the Lord, for that is their share. They will have no land of their own among the Israelites. The Lord himself is their special possession, just as he promised them. These are the parts the priest may claim as their share from the cattle, sheep, and goats that the people bring as offerings: the shoulder, the cheeks, and the stomach. You must also give to the priest the first share of the grain, the new wine, the olive oil, and the wool at shearing time. For the Lord your God chose the tribe of Levi out of all of your tribes to minister in the Lord's name forever. Suppose a Levite chooses to move from his town in Israel, wherever he is living, to the place the Lord chooses for worship. He may minister there in the name of the Lord his God, just like all his fellow Levites who are serving the Lord there. He may eat his share of the sacrifices and offerings, even if he also receives support from his family.
Thank you. So here it's just prescribing what's going to happen to the Levites. They were this special tribe, and they were the tribe from which the priests came. They were sort of they were the priestly tribe, and they had different regulations. All the other tribes were going to get boundaries. You're going into the land of Israel. They were going to cut out a certain piece of territory and say, hey, here's the tribe of Judah, or here's the tribe of Simeon, or here is the tribe of Ephraim. But in the land of Israel, there's not going to be a tribe of Levi. You're not going to look at a map and say, here is the tribe of Levi. Levi is spread out through all the tribes, and they are to teach the laws of God. They're to keep people on the straight and narrow. They would essentially have been sort of like a tribe, that they were the tribe that was completely devoted to ministry. That was supposed to be their sort of calling in life. We have any questions about that before we move on?
I just always thought it was neat. The Lord will be their inheritance, as he promised them. It's like, what a neat gift, or inheritance, or whatever, to be that well taken care of. But you'd also have the duties in return, but you just feel special.
Yeah.
That was, but the stomach?
Oh, is that what they get too?
Yeah.
Well, what about jaws or cheeks? Is what one yours said.
I get that. Mm-hmm. Do you ever cook stomachs?
Menudo.
Menudo, okay.
Yeah, I was going to say, depends on your...
Of course I have.
Yeah.
Yeah. Triton, that's what it is.
And I don't know what area it's referring to there. It may be referring to a cut of meat on the belly instead of the actual stomach itself. But I'd have to look that up in a lexicon to see.
Well, the menudo only have nothing inside other than it's a stomach.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of nerves, and I
Oh,
like
yeah.
those nerves. They are yummy.
Good, huh?
Well, and if you were poor enough,
Yeah.
my mom's family, they had to eat.
Oh, really?
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You ate everything but the squeal. as it said.
Except when my dad did it, because my mom says, no, huele mucho.
Yep.
And we didn't eat that, no way. And you aren't eating the kid, none of it.
Gotta find a use for everything, huh?
Yep.
Gotta eat.
Yeah, and it talks about, the first fruits of your grain, your wine, your oil, the first fleece of your sheep you shall give him.
Is that what you were asking, Gloria, or what? No. The question you asked.
I didn't ask, I don't think. I was just saying that I thought it was really special. They were set
Oh, I
apart
see.
very
Yeah.
special for the Lord.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Oh, with Jim that said that word. What was it again, Jim?
The stomach, and you said it, it's the menudo.
Menu.
See, but you said a different word, I thought. No? Oh, I misunderstood then. The stomach, yeah. Okay. I better
Yeah,
wait.
there's other parts you don't eat. Let's go down to verse 9. There's this section, and this is again on, sometimes the sections of the Bible they can seem a little out of order sometimes until you really think about it. And so these two sections, the Levites, what you're supposed to do for them, and then the next section about not following the practices of the nations around you. The reason I believe he's tying these two together is these priests' job is to keep the people faithful to God. Like the Levites are supposed to be there preaching and teaching the people the law and keeping them on the right path. This is why it's such a big deal when later, I believe it's Jeroboam, during the civil war he's having with Rehoboam, he actually expels all the Levites when he's setting up the cult in Bethel and Dan. And so when that happens, the nation of Israel, the northern kingdom, does not have those Levites to teach and preach the law for the hundreds of years of their existence. And if I remember correctly, there is not a single king who is mentioned from the northern kingdom of Israel as having done what was right in the eyes of the Lord. None of them. They are all said to have done what was evil in the eyes of the Lord. And so this may seem like a simple thing, like, oh yeah, you need to take care of the Levites, but it is, in my view, one of the things that is supposed to keep them from the next section, which is when you come into the land that the Lord your God is giving you, you shall not learn to follow the abominable practices of those nations. There shall not be found among you anyone who burns his son or his daughter as an offering, anyone who practices divination or tells fortunes or interprets omens, or a sorcerer or a charmer or a medium or a necromancer or one who inquires of the dead. For whoever does these things is an abomination to the Lord. And because of these abominations, the Lord your God is driving them out before you. You shall be blameless before the Lord your God. For these nations which you are about to dispossess, listen to fortune tellers and to diviners. But as for you, the Lord your God has not allowed you to do this. So he has this section talking about these wicked practices. First up, it's you're not to burn your son or your daughter as an offering. That is just don't do this, guys. And yet, of course, later we know that they do. But then there's all these other sort of what you might think of as magical practices, people practicing magic. He's saying don't do any of that. That's not right. And maybe one of the common threads that runs through this is these would be ways that people would make money from. A lot of these would be ways people would make money from what you might say spiritual practices. You go buy a charm, or you you get your fortune told, and you buy that. He's saying, don't do that. Questions or comments about that particular section? There's a parallel passage over in Leviticus 19 that kind of talks about that. 19, it's around verse 31. It's not a one-for-one passage, but there's some of the similar things that are mentioned over there.
So when they do those things, they're putting God second place. They're going to using Satan's power.
Yeah, for sure. Says it's an abomination, and because of these abominations, the Lord your God is driving them out before you. The implication is, when you do these things, you also will be driven out, which they do, and they are.
Yeah. Not much different today.
No. I was noticing the section on witchcraft in Barnes & Noble when I went in there. I was like, that's
wow.
not good.
Yeah.
People don't change.
Was it the one in Twin Falls?
Yes. Anything else on this particular section?
Well, the reason I said anything, Bryce, is because when I went in there, like the magic section was right on the right. All you had to do was take a right and go past some of the political,
No.
and you ran right into that.
No. Well, it's something to watch out for. The next section is interesting. We get to this section 15 through the end of the chapter. Would someone read that for us, please?
What verse does it start on?
15.
15.
Okay, 15.
18:15.
The Lord your God will raise up for ye a prophet like me from among ye, from your fellow Israelites. Ye must listen to him, for this is what ye asked of the Lord your God at Horeb on the day of the assembly, when ye said, Let us not hear the voice of the Lord our God, nor see the great fire any more, or else we shall die. The Lord said unto me, What they say is good. I will raise up for them a prophet like ye from among their fellow Israelites, and I will put my words inside his mouth. He will tell them everything I command him. I myself will call to account anyone who listens not to my words, that the prophet speaketh in thy name. But a prophet who presumes to speak in thy name in anything I have not commanded, or a prophet who speaks in the name of other gods, is to be stoned to death. Ye may say unto yourselves, How can we know when a message has not been spoken by the Lord? If what a prophet proclaims in the name of the Lord does not occur or come true, that is a message that the Lord has not spoken, and that the prophet has spoken presumptuously, so be not alarmed.
Thank you. So this is concerning the prophet that will be coming. That is, of course, Jesus Christ. You can see a parallel to this over in Matthew. If you turn over to Matthew chapter 17, there's this section on the Transfiguration. In Matthew 17, verses 1 through 13, this is the account of the Transfiguration. It says, After 6 days Jesus took with him Peter and James and John his brother, and led them up on a high mountain by themselves. And he was transfigured before them, and his face shone like the sun. His clothes became white as light. And behold, there appeared to them Moses and Elijah talking with them. And Peter said to Jesus, talking with him, Peter said to Jesus, Lord, it is good that we are here. If you wish, I will make 3 tents here, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. He was still speaking when, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and a voice from the cloud said, This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him. When the disciples heard this, they fell on their faces and were terrified. The account goes on. But look at the significance of this event. Because Elijah was arguably the greatest prophet of the Old Testament. Like, there were a lot of really good ones. But Elijah sort of, when you look back to the prophet, you would have said, okay, it's Elijah. And if you wanted to look back to the giver of the law, it's Moses. And so you have these two representatives, Moses for the law, Elijah for the prophets. And the voice from heaven says, no. You're not building 3 tabernacles, one for Moses, one for Elijah, and one for Jesus. This is my Son. You listen to him.
Wow.
And you can look back at Deuteronomy 18:15. The Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet like me from among you, from your brothers. It is to him you shall listen. So you can see a very clear connection that the gospel writer is drawing between these two accounts, or that God would be drawing between these two accounts. Questions or comments on that?
I always believed personally, Bryce, that was referring to Elijah, or one of the other prophets, but especially Elijah. I didn't realize it was connecting to Jesus Christ, but I tend to be wrong.
I think it has a dual meaning, so you're not wrong, but I think it also includes Christ.
I sort of just guessed at it today when I was reading it.
Yeah, Moses, but it does lead to Jesus. And even though Moses and Elijah is, like Bryce said, the lawgiver and the prophet.
Yeah.
Christ versus the one we listen to, and he says, you're not going to have any other thing but me, my words, my teaching, my gift.
Yeah, well, it's the words of Christ and belief in Christ. You know, when Peter confesses Jesus as the Christ, Jesus says, on this rock I will build my church. And he's not saying, on Peter I'm going to build my church, as the Catholics say. The rock of the church is built on the fact that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. And so it's on that sort of confession that really all of Christianity hinges on that. If Jesus Christ cannot be trusted as the Son of God, you should not be a Christian. He is, like, that fact, that statement is the cornerstone of everything we believe. And so, because he is the Son of God, then we listen to him. Because he is God's only begotten Son, you listen to him even more. Of course, you listen to the prophets who God sent. Of course, you listen to Moses, who talked with God himself. But even more than that, when the Son of God comes in the flesh, personally, you listen to him.
Would Elijah have come during these people's lifetime?
No.
Okay, so neither Jesus or Elijah.
Yeah,
So-
Elijah would have probably been 600 or 700 years later, if I'm not mistaken. So
Yeah.
quite some time.
So that's one of those statements that's given to everyone, not just those people that are standing there listening to it.
Yes, this is part of their law. You know, this goes into the law that they would have taught. This would have been something that every generation of faithful Hebrews would have learned. Like, okay, there's this prophet. He's going to arrive. you need to listen to him. We won't read all of 19, 1 through 13. We might read a little bit at the end. But this is the commandment that they're supposed to establish these cities of refuge. So if anyone accidentally kills someone, it says, as when someone goes into the forest with his neighbor to cut wood, his hand swings the axe to cut down a tree. The head slips off from the handle and strikes his neighbor so that he dies. He may flee to one of these cities and live. It's basically saying, okay, if someone killed someone, but it wasn't a murder, it was a manslaughter, it was an accident, they can run to these cities and not die. And so that innocent blood will not be shed. You get down to verse 11, though, it says, but if anyone hates his neighbor and lies in wait for him and attacks him and strikes him fatally so that he dies, and he flees into one of these cities, then the elders of his city shall send and take him from there and hand him over to the avenger of blood so that he may die. Your eyes shall not pity him, but you shall purge the guilt of innocent blood from Israel, so that it may be well with you. Part of this law that he's giving is what's going to happen if someone tries to abuse this. What if someone says, okay, I'm just going to murder that guy and then I'm going to run to the city of refuge and claim that I did it on accident? He says, no, that's not going to work. The elders of that city sends for him. They hand him over to the man who is after his life. And this is justice.
I think they needed better axe makers, because I think it's funny that with Elisha, there was a situation where the guy's axe, and then this is one of the examples. 'Cause how often would that happen, that an axe?
Well,
But
In those days, it very well could have happened
yeah,
very
that's
easily.
right.
even today, you swing an axe a few hundred times, that head, it can get pretty loose. It seems like bonding metal to wood is a pretty difficult problem.
Yeah.
Part of the reason is the care you give your tools. If the person using them, after a little while, you know when that's starting to get loose. You can tell just by the feel of it. So it should have been a heads up to, hey, you need to do some maintenance on this,
Yeah.
take care of it.
Yeah, there are other provisions in the law, like they were supposed to build a sort of a rail around the side of their roof.
Oh, yeah.
So that people wouldn't fall off and die that way, it says. So there are provisions in the law where you shouldn't expose people to unnecessary risk because of negligence. So, something to take into account.
Now we got OSHA.
Yeah, beloved. 14 is interesting. You shall not move your neighbor's landmark, which the men of old have set, in the inheritance that you will hold in the land that the Lord your God is giving you to possess. Obviously, they wouldn't have had GPS. They wouldn't have had these very, very precise optical electronic tools that we have today to measure the division of land. They would have done it by landmark, probably nearly entirely, I would think. They may have had some other ways, but I think it would probably have been entirely by landmark. So, if you wanted a little more land, you just scoot that rock over a few feet or a few miles, and you get a little more land. But he's saying don't do that. That's wrong. You're not supposed to cheat your neighbor like that.
Still is.
There's still people who try to do that.
Well, in Idaho or in Cache County, at least
Yeah,
for a while,
yeah.
if there was a fence up for more than a certain number of years, that was the official boundary, no matter what the
Oh,
survey
yeah.
said. And we came into an issue with that
Yeah.
on our property, because Grandpa and Dad owned everything, and they just put up fences where cows would not fall into,
Yeah.
whatever. And then when somebody bought some of that land,
Yeah.
then somebody's going, well, no, this is the boundary. It's like, no, this is the boundary. And most of us went along with the surveyors, but
Oh,
still,
yeah,
it did
yeah.
come up. And then the county assessor told us that they actually don't enforce that older fence law thing. Now
That's
it's
good.
the survey.
That's
Yeah.
good.
My daughter-in-law and his wife up here in Boise somewhere, they found, like you say, your father or whatever, that fence was moved, and they thought like, that wasn't there or whatever day. But it's okay, but it's true, it happened.
Well, people still try their old tricks.
Put here and a put there.
Yep.
Well, years ago, they did a survey and the Empire State Building was off 1 inch. And the owners had to buy that inch. And I guess it was pretty
It's
expensive.
pretty, yeah. Well, this isn't necessarily legal, but the Four Corners Monument down in Utah and Nevada and Arizona, that was off.
Oh, was
Yeah,
it?
found that. So, it's modern technology, might fix a
You
lot
know,
of things.
it's interesting though, and even the Israelites at that time, they used chains and sighting things to make lines and to measure distance. And, you know, they did that out here in the Old West, and then, you know, years later, you can come back with all your GPS stuff and find, oh, you know, they're off a foot.
Really?
So what?
What they were able to do.
It's, yeah, absolutely incredible how precise these people were with their instruments and how careful they were doing that.
Yeah.
We were lucky enough to get to go to Germany the year the
Wall?
wall came down.
Oh, wow.
And the people that had lived in East Germany wanted their land back. Well, the Nazis had destroyed all the records, had plowed all the landmarks.
Wow.
And, you know, that guy says, well, I have these 10 hectares over here. We're going,
Oh,
how
wow.
do we, you can't go back and redo that kind of thing, because there's no record of it. And I don't know, I'm curious how it finally turned out, but at that time, they had quite a, you know,
Yeah.
these people were coming back and say, hey, this used to be my land, and they're going, well,
Well, the Shunammite woman got her land back, and I always wondered about the record keeping on that and how they knew what that all was.
well, there had to be a
Yeah.
church, well, it could have been church or the city
Yeah.
kept records then, just like they do today, so.
But there were so many different wars and things.
Yeah, they would have kept you know, when they divided up all the land, they had records of they had genealogies, you know, who was related to who, who fathered who, and the land would have been passed through that. So, and of course, as a man had sons, it would have been divided between them. If he didn't have sons but daughters, it would have been divided between them. So down through the years, you could trace your land. I imagine the land records and the genealogy records were tied very closely together. This was the son of, son of Aaron. He had this amount of land over here. Obviously not Aaron the Levite, because they didn't get land. But,
No inheritance.
Well, and that was the thing when the destruction of Jerusalem and of the temple, all those records disappeared. You know, Jesus did it when the veil was torn. That was the separation then. But then when all the records were destroyed, there was no way to go back and say, hey, I'm a Levite. And
Yeah.
Not sure about that. But.
yeah. I don't know. There were other Jewish communities, so I don't know if they had. I don't know how many records survived. They may still have some of those, but you are correct. They destroyed a lot of stuff when the temple was burned. And I think it would have been pretty cool because while the temple was standing, and while they had those archives, I don't know if they kept them in the temple. I would imagine they were somewhere in the temple complex. But while they had those archives, you could have actually gone and checked the genealogies found in Matthew and Luke and said, oh, Jesus was descended from David.
Yeah.
Those were not just made-up genealogies that Matthew and Luke said, oh, he was the son of this and this and this. It was actually like, you can go down to the synagogue, you can go up to the temple, you can check these genealogies. These are public records that you can go back and look at. And including something like that would have been a very, very perilous if you were lying. Because any opponent of Christianity could just say, well, the public records don't match what you have in your gospel. The gospel records are not. They vary from the public record. In verses 15 through 21 of chapter 19, he talks about a single witness shall not suffice against a person for any crime or any wrong in connection with any offense that he has committed. Only on the evidence of 2 witnesses or 3 witnesses shall a charge be established. If a malicious witness arises to accuse a person of wrongdoing, then both parties to the dispute shall appear before the Lord, before the priests and the judges who are in office in those days. The judges shall inquire diligently, and if the witness is a false witness and has accused his brother falsely, then you shall do to him as he had meant to do to his brother. So you shall purge the evil from your midst. And the rest shall hear and fear, and never again commit any such evil among you. Your eye shall not pity. It shall be life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot. So there are a lot of these commandments. There's a lot of things that he tells them to do, for which the penalty is pretty severe. You can be stoned to death. You can be severely fined. There are some pretty terrible things that can happen if you're convicted of certain crimes. So he's saying there very well could be people who try to abuse this. People who rise up against their brother and say, oh, well, he's worshiping a false god, or he's moved the boundary stone, or he's done this or that, contrary to the law. He's saying the penalty for that is whatever he was intending to do to his brother. So through the law. If you're intending to get somebody killed through the law by falsely accusing them, you yourself will be convicted and killed. Anything you intend to do to someone else through the law falsely, that is the penalty for false witness, for the false witness.
I liked what your version says there, that they will hear and fear.
Yeah.
It's like if the penalty is consistent and severe, it cuts down on crime.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there a significance between the killing, the way they kill people then, as far as the stoning?
Stoning would have been a public thing.
And then crucifixion?
They didn't really do crucifixion in these days. That would have been invented later on. I believe Alexander the Great did a little bit of crucifixion, then the Romans adopted it later. Crucifixion really is the worst penalty. Like there's really nothing you can do to someone as bad as crucifixion. Stoning, it's a bad way to go. Usually you die because your head is crushed by a rock is what happens to you.
Crucifixion is suffer.
Say again?
I said crucifixion is suffer.
Yeah, it's a lot of things.
And shame.
There's a lot of really bad things.
Shame and humiliation,
Yeah.
drawn out as long as possible.
But there, sometimes in the law of Moses, it's prescribed that someone would be burned, and I think that was sort of the worst way that the law of Moses would execute someone,
So
as far as I
battle,
know.
And if they go into battle, then the sword was used.
Yes.
That's for the killing.
Yeah. Yeah, and it talks about that, struck with the edge of the sword. They say that a lot.
In the one place, they ran that spear through both people.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of different ways that people die during the Old Testament. The next section is on war, and it's kind of interesting. It talks about when you go out to war against your enemies, and you see horses and chariots and an army larger than your own, you shall not be afraid of them, for the Lord your God is with you, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt. And when you draw near to the battle, the priest shall come forward and speak to the people, and shall say to them, Hear, O Israel, today you are drawing near for battle against your enemies. Let not your heart faint, do not fear or panic, or be in dread of them. For the Lord your God is he who goes with you to fight for you against your enemies, to give you the victory. Then the officers shall speak to the people, saying, Is there any man who has built a new house and has not dedicated? Let him go back to his house, lest he die in the battle and another man dedicate it. Is there any man who has planted a vineyard and has not enjoyed its fruit? Let him go back to his house, lest he die in the battle and another man enjoy its fruit. Is there any man who has betrothed a wife and has not taken her? Let him go back to his house, lest he die in the battle and another man take her. And the officers shall speak further to the people and say, Is there any man who is fearful and faint-hearted? Let him go back to his house, lest he make the heart of his fellows melt like his own. And when the officers have finished speaking to the people, then the commanders shall be appointed at the head of the people. So this is a really interesting practice, Normally, a lot of times, the way that you would fight a war in ancient times is you call out all the males between two certain ages. You have the youngest and the oldest of a certain age, and pretty much everyone is expected to go out to war. That was how a lot of these nations fought. And here he's saying, if you do that, you then talk to all of them and say, this is a volunteer mission. Anybody who wants to go home can go home. If you're fearful or faint-hearted, you don't have to be here. If you are, if you're not in a place in your life where you're ready to die, you can go home. You don't have to be here because the Lord our God is going before us to fight our battles. That's the whole. This is all about the faith that you have in God, that He is going to be your victory, and not just the strength of numbers that you've been able to bring to bear against your enemies. Questions or comments on that particular section?
I was wondering about whether or not people might lie about the vineyard and all that stuff, but he gives the blanket out where he just says
Yeah.
if you don't want to go or if you're scared. I like it because this says you won't ruin the morale of the other Israelites.
Yeah. And that little section in verse 9 is interesting to me. It says, And when the officers have finished speaking to the people, then commanders shall be appointed at the head of the people. It's almost like, and no one's really going to miss you. We're going to do the count after you go. We're going to set up all these commanders over individuals after everyone who doesn't want to be there is already gone.
Yeah, because you wouldn't want to appoint a commander that's going to go home.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, they were probably picked because they did stay, and the fact that they had the ability to maybe lead the people.
Yeah.
Strong attitude, or something to that effect.
Yeah.
That didn't mean that they all went, and there was only one left
Yeah.
at the end. But then, where was the army then?
What do you mean?
Well, if they picked the captains and for the people, supposedly, I guess some of them stayed,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
didn't go home, so.
Yeah.
They had an army.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a certain segment of people who, men especially, who are willing to fight.
Right.
Verses 10 through 20 are the laws concerning warfare against foreign cities. It says, when you draw near to a city to fight against it, offer terms of peace to it. And if it responds to you peaceably and it opens to you, then all the people who are found in it shall do forced labor for you and shall serve you. But if it makes no peace with you, but makes war against you, then you shall besiege it. And when the Lord your God gives it into your hand, you shall put all its males to the sword. But the women and the little ones, the livestock, and everything else in the city, all its spoil, you shall take as plunder for yourselves. And you shall enjoy the spoil of your enemies, which the Lord your God has given you. Thus you shall do to all the cities that are very far from you, which are not the cities of the nations here. But in the nations of these peoples that the Lord your God is giving you for an inheritance, you shall save alive nothing that breathes, but you shall devote them to complete destruction. The Hittites and the Amorites and the Canaanites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and the Jebusites, as the Lord your God has commanded, that they may not teach you to do according to all their abominable practices that they have done for their gods, and so you sin against the Lord your God. When you besiege a city for a long time, making war against it in order to take it, you shall not destroy its trees by wielding an axe against them. You may eat from them, but you shall not cut them down. Are the trees in the field human, that they should be besieged by you? Only the trees that you know are not trees for food you may destroy and cut down, that you may build siege works against the city that makes war with you until it falls. So, he's sort of telling them not to wage halfway wars. Like, you're not going to go into a city and capture it and have this long drawn-out insurgency for generations. Either you fight against it and you destroy everyone who can resist you, or you leave it alone. You don't fight against it. You don't make war with that particular city. Or it surrenders to you peaceably and you can allow them to be subjugated. This can seem a bit harsh, but you see the results of halfway wars, especially all over the Middle East. Like, these people are always just, you can't deal with them. They have no concept of losing. Like the Iranians, they've been, so utterly knocked down in their conventional military, and they just don't care. They're just going to keep fighting. I think if they had a stick, they would keep fighting. They don't care. And you can't have peace with someone like that. You either need to leave them alone or completely wage war on them, is what Moses is advising the children of Israel to do here, in my view.
Yes, destroy.
Yeah.
It says destroy. So,
Yeah. And then we get Moses the environmentalist. Don't cut down the fruit trees around the city that you're besieging. Kind of an interesting little tidbit.
Well, I always thought it was good because God thought of head that way too, because he would say, I won't let the land be empty for too long before you get there, because otherwise it'll be run down. And so this way he knows that the people need the food. But I like it that he says you can cut them down to build the blockades.
Yeah, you don't cut down the fruit trees, but all the other trees you can cut down to build your siege works. That was something that, strikes you about different ancient sieges. When Josephus was describing the siege of Jerusalem, he talks about how not just Jerusalem was destroyed, but everything around it was just like completely obliterated, The Romans cut down everything so that they could build up against that city. And it really, it really just left a desolation around Jerusalem when they were done. And I think Moses is trying to get them to consider a different course of action.
Well, part of it is if they're going to occupy it,
Yeah.
you don't destroy something that you can use.
Yeah.
There's use the other trees for the things you need to wage the war with. Because you're going to inherit that, and isn't that part of your inheritance?
Yeah. That's a good one. There was a story of an ancient king, two kings actually. One king was very, very rich. He was besieged by another king, overcome in battle. And the other king was standing there with him as a captive. The rich king was captive. The other king was standing there. And they were watching the soldiers of the victorious king loot the rich king's treasuries. And the victorious king said to the other king, "Doesn't this bother you that they're looting your treasuries?" He said, "They're not looting my treasuries, they're looting your treasuries." And so it may be something like that here. Don't cut down the trees of a city that you're hoping to take over.
Yeah.
Very, very good for that point, Jim. Well, that's the end of chapter 20. Do we have final questions or comments about any of this section? Either this latter section on warfare or the earlier sections that we read about?
So how does it pertain to today? What can we take away from it?
Well, you still have people trying to move boundary stones. You still have people trying to falsely accuse others. We still go to war with each other.
So what, people kill people accidentally and on purpose?
Yes. A lot of these principles of justice we have inherited. You know, the innocent until proven guilty. That's not true everywhere in the world. And it's especially not true in certain dictatorial regimes. You can see regimes in history that all it takes is one accusation by one person and off with their head. And people do use that to their personal advantage. And they have that used right back against them. So there are a lot of principles of justice that our governments should look to these books for. You should look back at this and say, okay, this is what God commanded them. Not everything might be pertinent still, you know. We don't keep slaves in these days. And I believe that is based on biblical principles. I believe that some of the things that God gave them laws concerning for is just because they are in such a brutal environment. And if He gave them more strict laws, they wouldn't be able to adhere to those. So we might need to have more strict laws pertaining to certain things today, just because we have come a long way since the time of Moses, especially because we have the teachings of Jesus Christ. But in the same way, this was also handed to Moses by God. I mean, this is a form of this is justice. If you want to see what justice looks like, you can come to the book of Deuteronomy. You can go to the book of Leviticus and see what a just law looks like. It's these laws.
Well, also for us is that prophet that's coming that we need to
Yes.
listen to.
Yeah.
It's coming then. Now he's already been here.
Yeah, our children are still being sacrificed.
Yes.
To the altar of worship.
And probably for some of the same reasons, you know. It's pretty easy to go and get a child that you don't necessarily want to raise, so you just do away with that little booger. And that is just absolutely wrong in God's sight. That is an abomination. And He drove those nations out because, in part, they were doing that. And we need to remember that and just be absolutely against that. It is such a blight on this nation.
That and they sacrifice on the altar of transgenderism, forcing our kids to become something they're not.
Yeah.
Yeah. They do some bad stuff in that regard as well, for sure.
Years ago, they found a body of a baby out where we lived.
Oh,
And it appeared they'd done some witchcraft stuff,
Oh.
sacrificed. And they never did find where the baby came from. Still happens, unfortunately.
that was pretty big in part of Utah with taking them over to Wyoming, taking babies from Utah, children, going over to Wyoming. Ew.
Yeah. Well, we should prosecute, obviously, those people to the fullest extent of the law for the murder that they have committed.
That's what I said, did a capital punishment.
Yeah.
Yeah. And worshiping these false gods, it draws you into that stuff. When you are worshiping demons, what they want is evil.
Well, my neighbor's son had some ugly stuff in his arm. And well, you said, you look spooky.
Yeah.
And then he says, well, you want me to take my shirt off? No, that's enough.
Seen plenty.
I don't want to see. That's enough.
Yeah.
Why can't they do that?
Is that the tattoos things you're talking about? Or
And my neighbor's
Yeah.
son, just crazy. I think
Well,
they get a little high.
Say bye
and
to
do
everybody
that.
on the recording.